Welcome, Falcon fans, to another edition of Bowling Green Falcon Hockey Weekly. Ryan Vallon here with head coach Chris Bergeron of the Bowling Green Falcons. Well, coach, your team is off to a 2-0 start, beating Mercyhurst 8-2. And what were your thoughts on that game?
On the Mercyhurst game, I thought it was really good. I really liked the fact that we got off to the start we did. We had some guys involved on the score sheet. Our special teams were good. I thought for the most part we were pretty competitive. It felt like the perfect start. You know, in the years past, that first game has been some type of exhibition game, and it doesn't count. So for this game to count and us play the way we played on the road, I thought there was lots of positives coming out of there, coming out of Erie on Saturday night.
Now, you mentioned that, you know, usually the games don't usually count during that time. What do you think are maybe the pros and cons of having, you know, the season just start all of a sudden against Mercyhurst?
You know, I haven't, Ryan, really given a whole lot of thought to the pros and cons of it. Obviously, the cons of it is you haven't played much, and these games count right away. Not necessarily to WCHA standings, but to national rankings, those kind of things. They count to your overall record. The pros. The overall pro, which the exhibition game does as well, it's just time to play somebody else. When you get to that first week of October, last week of September, you've already had 4 or 5 weeks of training camp of them scrimmaging against one another and so on and so forth. They're ready to play somebody else. That's the biggest pro to it. And now you can start to learn and establish and mold your 18-19 group based on games and not on practice. And that's what playing games that count right away, or even just playing games against somebody else right away. That's what comes to my mind.
Some statistical standouts from that game: Stephen Bayless, 3 goals and an assist, so he scored the first hat trick of the NCAA this season, and Max Johnson scored 2 goals and 2 assists. So, you know, the returners in this group really starting to rise up to a new level.
Yeah, we've talked a lot about that sophomore class, but we've also talked about how this team will go as far as you know, the seniors will take us. And Stephen got off to a great start. I think overall, like I said, our power play got off to a great start. So Max was able to get involved there, and you know, Connor Ford had a goal in the power play, Cruz had some assists, all that kind of stuff. So it was nice to see different guys get involved. But as we're used to around here, it is a collective effort when it comes to offense. But you know, we start with Steven there, and for him to get off to that kind of start is encouraging for us.
And then flip ahead to the game that just happened recently with a 6-2 win over Western Michigan. This is the first time that you have gone into Lawson Ice Arena and pulled out a victory, the first time that the Falcons have beaten Western Michigan since 2013. So it was a pretty good win, although it was kind of sloppy out there from what it seemed like. But then your team really buckled down in the third period and took the victory.
Yeah, from our perspective, we basically got pushed around for 2 periods. We weren't skating, we weren't overly competitive, which is things that we say we are all the time. And Western Michigan was really competitive in skating. And if it wasn't for Ryan Bednard, we're in a deficit. But instead, we were pretty opportunistic around the other team's net, and we go into the third period up a goal. So we're trying to find a way to just stop the negative momentum and start some positive momentum by just going back to the starting point or ground zero, if you will. That we can be competitive, we can defend, we can be skating more than we are. Those kind of things, and it's just it's something that this team needs to learn, that's who we are all the time. So when things aren't going well, let's go back there. And I think the end of the second period came at a good time. It was a really poor period for us, and we were able to right the ship a little bit, gather our senses, and go back to work. We scored the first shift of the third, and I think that gave us momentum to go and have our best period of the night.
What do you think it is about this Falcon team in 2018-19 that maybe separates from the rest of the teams that you've had in the past?
Well, I can't comment on that. And you know, we've had good starts, we've had bad starts, we've had good seasons and bad seasons. It's been 2 games. Right now, pucks have gone in the net. You know, we're not really used to scoring 8 and 6 back-to-back games, and we've had some really strong goaltending and only giving up 2 goals in both games. So those 2 things come to mind. But I don't think that it's the snapshot or the picture is big enough with only 2 games under under our belt to say this team is different. Every team at this time of year will learn what it does in adversity. When I'm playing poorly as an individual, where do I go? When we get painted into a corner, what does this team do? Does it fight? Does it dig in? Those are all things that we're learning about ourselves, and I think the snapshot is too small to say this team is different than other teams with only 2 games played.
A couple of more statistical standouts. Timothy Ocherta scored his 2nd career goal. Taylor Schneider gets on the score sheet for his 1st career goal. So we talked about during the game that the freshmen are really starting to step up, but now we're starting to see more in Taylor Schneider.
Yeah, I mean, I think last night we had 4 freshmen in the lineup. The first night we had 5. So between the freshman and sophomore class, you've got 12, 13, 14 players. That's a big part of your lineup as far as skaters go anyway. And those guys are taking advantage of an opportunity. Taylor had a good training camp. Timothy Ocherta came in with all these expectations and also had a good training camp. It's nice to see guys contributing. We need our underclassmen contributing just because there's so many of them in the lineup, and that's not a bad thing. That's not a bad thing at all. I like to see kids, because they don't know what they don't know, and you get thrown into a situation like Lawson last night. You ride the bus the day of the game, and those kind of things. Just a little bit different of a normal routine, quote unquote. And I think the kids are handling it pretty well.
Moving ahead to the weekend that is coming up, Robert Morris, you have a home at home. And what are you looking so far for Robert Morris, and maybe the expectations on what you can expect to have and maybe the opponent as well?
Well, I don't know much about the opponent from the 18-19 standpoint. Historically, they're a really strong team in Atlantic hockey. They've won playoff championships, regular season championships. They historically have 3 or 4 individuals that have a bunch of points. I think they play the game from an offensive mindset. Not that they can't defend or goaltend, but I think they're a team that's really dangerous offensively, at least in the past. They're coming off of a win against Brock University on Sunday, I believe. So we'll get to that tape later today and tomorrow. I'm expecting it to be a very difficult game. They're a team that isn't too far away, so we can play home and home. It's a little bit different with the Friday-Sunday, but we'll get there Thursday night and start to prepare Friday. But the mindset doesn't change for us. We want to learn from last night in terms of the X's and O's and the system piece and get a little bit better with our details and our process. But it's another opportunity to play a good team in their building early in the year. So we'll see how we go.
Game is on Friday night at 7 to 5 p.m. Of course, I'll have you covered 6:35, beginning with pregame on the Falcon Radio Network. And then the Falcons come home to take on Robert Morris. That is the regular season home opener for Bowling Green. Of course, if you cannot make it to the Slater Family Ice Arena, of course, I'll have you covered on the Falcon Radio Network. Coach, thank you very much for sitting down with me.
Thanks for having me.
And we'll have the next week of BG Falcon Hockey Weekly next week, and we'll talk to you then.